everyone. How are you doing today? Good. So I'd like to introduce some of our panelists today. We have been talking about wellness and how this relates to technology, and we have a few experts on panel that I would like to introduce. Julie, if you would come to stage, Giles, Jamie, and Debbie, and we'll do a quick bio on each of you and get this thing started.
Hello.
1, 2, hello, yes.
So thank you to Hans Grohe for sponsoring this event. It's very important to have sponsors involved in these programs so that we can continue to share education with all of you. I'm very excited to be here today. If you would give me just a quick bio on yourself, Julie, and share with the crowd your excitement and enthusiasm for today.
I'm so excited and enthused. I'm Julie Jacobson with CEPro magazine. We're the leading trade magazine for home technology installers, the folks that are installing home theaters, home automation, security, lighting, healthful lighting that we're going to talk about. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Giles Sutton, Senior Vice President of Industry Engagement at CEDIA. For those that haven't heard of CEDIA, we are the global trade association of companies that design and install home technology in the residence. We represent about 3,700 companies globally, about 40,000 individuals, and we are also a big part, we have a technology show called CEDIA Expo every year as well.
Hi everybody, my name is Jamie Gold. I'm a certified kitchen designer and a wellness design consultant. I've written 2 books on kitchens and baths. I do a lot of speaking and panels, and glad to be here with you all today.
Hi, I'm Debbie Davis. I'm an independent kitchen and bath designer from Denver, and I am certified in aging in place and certified living in place. So thank you for coming.
Awesome. So we have a very diverse panel, and we'll kick this off by sharing experiences for each of you and how you connect technology and wellness and what that means to you and your business. So we'll start with you, Debbie.
Well, technology is really important, actually. I do mostly residential design, and I incorporate, like in the bathrooms. So technology is really important so people can keep their independence. That's key. And so when I incorporate technology into, say, the bathrooms, I would use the bidet seat so they can have their independence in cleaning themselves. I use lighting. I use lighted outlets so they can see and have accessibility. And in the kitchen, there's all of the apps that you can do that are remote controls for your appliances, your window coverings, your Nest, so you have security. So it's pretty important in the residential area for the wellness.
Awesome. And Jamie, can you tell me, technology and wellness has this broad scope of meaning. What does it mean to you?
Well, way back in, I think it was 2011, I wrote a blog post called June Jetson Redesigns Her Kitchen. And I was looking at all the technology that was available and could be available, and now it's part of our daily lives. And as some of us move into our late 50s and beyond, that technology can help us live independently longer and safer. I do think it's important, though, to consider the safety aspects of it, the privacy and security aspects of it. If you're working as a designer on a project, you need to bring in people like Giles, technology integrators at the very beginning of the project, because what you don't know can bite you on the bottom line really, really hard. And I think it's also important to know what is lasting and avoid issues like obsolescence. So work with professionals, keep in mind what's real and what's hype, and take advantage of what's available for health and wellness, your own and your clients.
Awesome. And Julie, I know that you work with biopharmaceutical design and creating experiences with design and wellness. Can you share some of that experience as well?
Yeah, in our industry, the dealers are the people that are installing all sorts of technologies in the home automation. And we've leached onto this idea of circadian lighting, also called human-centered lighting, that mimics the natural daylight. When you consider the history of humankind, there were about a few 100,000 years where we were living outdoors with nature, and then it's only been just a blip that we're now spending 90% of our time indoors with no view. So there's a theory in design based on this idea of biophilia, loving the natural world. And so biophilic design is intended to mimic the patterns of nature. And in fact, biomimicry would be the mimicking of biology. So lighting, circadian lighting, when you start in the morning with a redder hueish, a warmer color temperature and low intensity, and then during the day, again, mimicking the natural daylight, a bluer color, higher intensity for alertness. That's when our cortisol is at the highest level in our hormonal cycle. So that's the fight or flight response. That's when the tigers are going to get you. And then it's important then to ramp down the lighting in the evening, just like the natural flow of lighting, so that we can start to get sleepy and get our natural rest. And so that's the exciting example in lighting that we're already sort of implementing in our world. But all the other stimuli out there, the sounds of nature, the visuals of nature, smells, all of that, there's scientific evidence that shows us, I mean, it's hard-coded in our DNA that these rhythms are natural, and we need to be exposed to this nature on a daily, minute-by-minute basis.
Can I jump in for a moment? Just to say that those systems that you're talking about, these sophisticated lighting systems, are often tied into smart home technology. So you don't have to think about it, it's automated for you.
Well, absolutely. And it's interesting what you were saying, Jamie, about how important it is that the planning that goes into this, that you involve a technology specialist as early on as possible to design for wellness to a certain extent. I mean, prior to working for CEDIA, I ran a technology company in London and was installing technology in primarily high-end residential properties. And anyone that knows the London market will know that we're the home of the mega basement, right? And I worked on properties that had 3-story basements, and we were increasingly seeing spa and wellness areas being built into these very sterile, environments, and lighting coming into that. We saw skylight sort of emulators that would emulate the direction of the sun and also the color temperature throughout the day. But also we would incorporate, through discussions with the designers, sort of soundscapes. So we actually had one client that wanted to sort of emulate the sound, different sort of soundscapes. So a rainforest or other environments like that, where you could actually have different sounds coming from different speakers. So from your Sonos system, you'd sort of incorporating areas like of sound design that you would mostly see in theatrical sound design. So it's very interesting to see that moving into the residential space.
Very good. So I know we talk about health and wellness, and we focus on a couple key topics. I'd like to jump in and talk about how lighting really affects wellness. And Julie, if you can kind of speak to how that relates to this natural environment as well, and how lighting is important for wellness.
So lighting is the key signal of our circadian rhythms. If you can tackle daylighting indoors, then you've nailed about 75% of it. Research study after research study will show you improved productivity in the workplace, 200% less turnover in one case, 15% less absenteeism. So just having the right lighting is there's a definite ROI on that. But that's just one portion of it. When you layer on top of that the other stimuli that you see in nature, the benefits are multiplicative. So Giles mentioned sound. So one of the sounds that's scientifically shown to be calming is running water. There's a company called Plantronics that installs soundscapes in offices, and they play this running water in the background, and it stimulates creativity, it stimulates concentration. Now, when you add a visual on top of that, the benefits are even better. So they added water features inside the building, so there's no disconnect. When you hear water and you don't see water, there's a disconnect. It can be confusing. It can actually be counterproductive. And then on top of that, now they're adding the visuals. So it's all these elements of nature coming together that really have this impact. And Giles was talking about fake skylights. They're putting them in prisons now. And, you know, there was one study in prisons that show you even the visual of watching nature videos. One group watched nature videos 3 to 4 times a week, and the other group didn't. And the incidence of violence among those that watched the nature video was 23% less. So nature has definitely scientifically proven benefits, and it can be faked. I mean, that's the good news for our industry. The CEDIA installers can fake nature for you.
Yeah, and Giles, can you kind of spin off on that a little bit and how that can be done with technology?
So how the process works, or how a CEDIA member might work on interface with a designer, or how the actual technical
The actual
methodology?
technical parts of working with faking nature for technology's sake.
Well, there's a whole host of ways that you can do it, to be honest. There is lighting products out there available. One that I think of offhand is a system called Ketra that was acquired, a lighting fitting manufacturer that was acquired by Lutron, which anyone that's aware of lighting will know is a very large lighting control system manufacturer. I met up with a technology company in Manhattan on Monday, and they're starting to actually design these fittings into their homes, and they demonstrated it to me in their offices. And they said actually the application of this is actually very, very simple. The way that it actually interfaces with the lighting control system, you just need to make sure from the outset that you have the right infrastructure in place to actually support a system like this. So as we touched on earlier, as Jamie mentioned, it's important to have those conversations early on so that then the technology specialist that you employ comes up with the right system design to match that.
So, and that would include a television that has something that is calming, running water, wind blowing, something of that nature?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, another project we worked on, the homeowner was very into video artwork as well, and how that can have a very calming effect. So by using projection onto walls, it's now much easier to install projectors in both high light and low light areas. The projection technology has moved on a huge amount. So actually video art is also very therapeutic as well. And that is something that we have seen increase in residential technology installations as well.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that this is stuff that our industry has been doing for 30 years. It's just a different conversation. The conversation used to be, let's put in a bunch of videos or a giant projector to cover the entire wall because it's super cool, whereas now you can say, let's build you a fake window with a view of the woods. Let's bring in the aromatherapy, which is proven to have therapeutic effects. Hey, what's that on your wrist? A sleep tracker? What is it telling you? Well, it's telling me that my sleep sucks. Oh, okay, well, let's talk about your day. Let's see what we can do to improve your sleep with lighting and different types of technologies.
Awesome. And still on the topic of lighting, I know with the living in place concept, lighting is incredibly important for wellness or independence. Can either of you speak to lighting in that capacity?
Well, so children, you think about aging in place, and we're all aging in place, even though we don't want to. We are all doing it. And up until the age of 20, we can take in the amount of light that we need. But starting at age 20 up until age 60, we lose 80% of the capacity to take in light and use it. So it diminishes with age. And we have to incorporate more light, but also better light. So it gets back to the circadian rhythm for years and years, thousands of years, we lived with a natural daylight and the high kelvins, the really high light, and then the modified light. And we spent 90% of our days outside. Well, today, we spend 90% of our time inside with constant levels of light and the constant kelvins, which greatly impacts our well-being. It affects our mood, our hormones, our muscle tone, our sleep patterns. It's really quite amazing how it can affect people. So what I do with my clients is I talk about their budget and what they want to accomplish. But lighting is so important. I think it's really good that we put lots of light in, different kinds of light, and then we can put them on dimmers to create the lower kelvins, lower temperature, the mood lights. And it's just quite amazing how the color of the light. So kelvins are color, and to keep that in mind when we think about the residential design and how it does impact the lighting. So you can help an elderly couple incorporate light, and it can change their whole health just by being able to see the floors, the lights, closets, and showers. It's a big impact. Well, you don't think about it when you're younger, but as you're older, it does affect your mood when you can't see. So I think lighting is very big.
Could one thing I would just like to say, I think we're actually in a worse position now than we've ever been because of the low voltage lighting that we have, where it does maintain that very, very white light. When we were using incandescent lighting, we would still get an element of warmth coming into the light as you dim down. So you'd get that sort of golden kind of sunset feel as you were dimming the light. Now, and you can take this sort of exhibition center as an example, it's constant, right? And depending on, no matter what level you are dimming that light, it's going to maintain the same color temperature, which is so unnatural. And that is what is happening in homes across the world right now. You're dimming light and it's maintaining the same color temperature throughout the dimming spectrum.
On an even simpler basis, so often people don't put enough light or the right type of light into a kitchen or bath project. And that could be a safety issue. Take, for example, the space where you do your prep work for a meal. If your eyesight isn't what it was in your 20s, and I know mine isn't, you can offset that with better lighting under, shining onto that countertop. And that could be the difference between a perfectly julienne vegetable and an imperfectly julienne fingertip. So, and in the bathroom where you shave, you want there to be the best light possible. So it's about quality of light, and it's also about the quantity of light, especially in the task area where you need it as people's eyes change over, through the years.
So, may I? Giles mentioned the variability in the lighting. And again, if you think about nature, everything's variable. We're building buildings to spec where there's an ASHRAE standard of something like 72 degrees is the temperature that 80% of the occupants are most comfortable with. Well, having a variable flat temperature throughout the day is not beneficial to the health. It's important to have little puffs of wind, little variability in the air temperature and humidity, even if it's just brief. Otherwise, if everything's stagnant, we lose our alertness, we get fatigued. So there needs to be movement in the lighting, movement in the airflow and the temperature flow. Variability in temperature, if you must keep the building at 72 degrees to please 80% of the occupants, then have different types of surfaces, some that are cold, some that are hotter, some that make you want to put your sweater on, some that make, might be in the warm sun. So having those variable temperatures with different surfaces is very healthy in the work environment so people can create their own variability, virtual variability in the temperature.
I'd like to touch on the topic too. I've heard Jamie use the term athlete in place, which is really an interesting concept. And I enjoyed hearing your example of what this means for wellness and how this is relative to a bathroom space.
Well, I became a certified aging in place specialist about 12 years ago, and I quickly realized that nobody likes the A word, myself included. And people in all age groups are focused on fitness and wellness and health, but especially those who are getting, more advanced in years. We want to stay young. We want to stay independent, energetic. I was at a half marathon last weekend, and a woman was 73 years old and was getting ready to run the LA marathon after that. And this is somebody who sees herself as an athlete, and she wants to be independent. Well, that applies to home too, whether it's a bathroom, whether it's the kitchen, and what you put into the space where you prep your meals, the space where you recover after your workouts, is so influential in how healthy you can be and how it affects your body. So that's kind of why I coined the term athlete in place instead of aging in place.
Can you give us an example of an athlete recovery and how that is relative to the bathroom space specifically?
Well, one of my favorite things to include in a bathroom project, and I have one in my own home, is a handheld massaging shower head. And that handheld massaging shower head is good for several things. One is after a race or after an endurance event or a hike or a long bike ride, you can point that at some muscle that's hurting that you didn't know you had before, and it can ease the discomfort. And the other thing is it can help you get grit out of places it would otherwise be hard to do. Another example are the bidet-style toilets that can enable somebody to live independently longer because it, in some ways, takes the place of a caregiver, providing that same feature. So that would be two examples.
Awesome. I know the soaking tubs are very popular as well for recovery. We've seen a lot of input for float tanks or floating. This whole concept of floating is becoming very big and very focused on wellness. And it really is that sense of additional sleep, additional relaxation, and really putting yourself in more of a meditative state. So as we continue, I'd like to move into the conversation about automation and how we automate with simply the touch of a button or voice activation. Debbie, if you could talk about some simple things that you incorporate into design with voice activation or push touch technology.
Well, recently I have done some remote controls as far as like window coverings, and you just you can have them programmed so they open and close a certain time of the day. You can have elevators. I've installed an elevator in my one of my residences, so I think that's technology to ease the knees. And there's touchless faucets that you can use that are really nice, and you don't have to worry about the levers. The bidet seat is wonderful because it gives people independence, and people love their independence, and that's the last thing they want to give up as we all age in place. Lighted electrical outlets are big, and then those massage therapy tubs. It's therapeutic, but then it has the aromatherapy, it has the light therapy. That all plays a really big impact on our moods and our whole physiological well-being.
Giles, do you have any examples of some cool technologies that are coming out with voice activation or touch technology?
For sure. I mean, we're seeing voice technology on the rise. I mean, it's been a hot topic. Even here, we've had it's been coming up on many discussions. Actually, the idea essentially that you don't actually even maybe you don't actually need an interface, that actually have a tactile interface within a space, and actually you can just control all the technology through your voice, and actually control what I call automation scenes. So in the morning, you could just say, morning scene, or even it could be triggered by your normal alarm. And then the temperature of the lighting within the room starts to adjust to try and stimulate you and help you wake up. Your blinds or your window shades will start to open, and maybe music will start to play. But and it sets a temperature as well that's comfortable for that particular time. So yeah, it's certainly coming in. Voice is certainly coming into all the discussions that we're having with homeowners.
For voice, it's very, very helpful for people who have vision issues. If your client doesn't see at all, or has maybe 5% vision, that voice control can do so many of the things that, having lost their sight, they can no longer do independently. So it's huge for wellness and universal design.
I mean, again, things that CEDIA dealers have been doing for so long, and now that we're understanding the science of circadian rhythms, it's very simple for a home to automatically, set the lights and open up the shades and possibly present nature sounds and video at the right times, and then ramp down at the end of the day. What we're seeing now is the ability for different types of sensors to understand your moods. So technologies that are similar to cameras but are not as invasive as cameras can understand if you might be feeling depressed. They can tell by your motion, by your gait, if you're slowing down, if you're going in one direction and then turning around like you're confused. Similarly, there's biofeedback from your voice that can tell an Alexa system or some other voice recognition system that there's trouble, maybe a change that's in the way you're speaking, in the words you're using, and if you're slurring. And then it can automatically give you the feedback that will be the most helpful for any given situation. Soothing music, if it can tell that you're slowing down. Nostalgic smells, if there's signs of dementia, for example, if you're turning directions and standing in spaces, not knowing where you're going. So a lot of these kind of biometric feedback mechanisms will tell the house what to do in order to improve your moods and wellness.
The other thing about voice products is, make no mistake, they are being monitored to understand human behavior. And that, people feel that is potentially controversial, but people feel positively about it and negatively about it at the same time. But what we're seeing at the moment, I've always thought it's very strange how we call our industry that, some people call them the home automation industry, because to be honest, there's not a lot of automation that actually happens. The humans always have to trigger something, always trigger an event. But we're at a point now where we are moving into the world of AI, where actually technology is monitoring your behavior, and then at the same point monitoring maybe an irregularity, something that's a bit unusual, and then taking an action because of that, which comes back to the discussion, the point you made about sort of aging in place and actually monitoring perhaps if there's been a fall or if something has happened and that you're not necessarily aware of. So there are positives and negatives to voice products, but it's certainly a very exciting area that we're seeing developing right now.
It's so funny to think that, lawsuits from years from now will be blaming the artificial intelligence instead of the humans. So let's talk. I know we talk about wellness and we think about the food and the nutrients that we put into our bodies. I know appliances are a big factor in the kitchen industry, obviously around health and wellness and technology. Do either of you want to speak to anything related to the appliances and how that's related to health and wellness with technology as well?
What I would like to see in technology and wellness, what I've observed is that a lot of it is geared toward packaged food, and being able to have the microwave know what's going in. I'd like to see more technology geared toward non-packaged food, toward fruits, vegetables, what nutrients are included. I've seen that at shows. I think the adoption takes a while for technology like that to make it into the mainstream. But in the meantime, we have combi steam ovens becoming so incredibly popular and a very healthy way to cook, and induction cooktops making meal prep faster, cleanup faster and more convenient, and the safety factors of being able to know that, no, you didn't leave your oven on or your burner on, or it can shut off, using smart technology. So there are pros and cons, and you could shape it to be what you want it to be, what your clients want it to be, and just be aware of what's out there and what it can do, but there's no substitute for putting healthy things in your body.
Right. Well, with integration and technology, it comes with a cost. And so that's always one big variable that we have to confirm, right off the bat. What are they comfortable with using? A lot of people don't want too much technology, and some people really want to just eat it up. And it comes with a cost. It's not inexpensive, but there's little things you can do that can totally enhance their well-being, like the lighting, and the smart appliances. That's one really nice step, and to get into the technology that's available. It's going to be slow to come, and there's people that are already on board and gung ho. And it's exciting. I think it's pretty exciting.
We recently were in Cologne and looking at some new trends that were happening in the industry, and we're watching technology for wellness for people that are paraplegic and don't have the ability to have the mobility that we all have. And they are droning food in using technology, which is just unbelievable to think about. So the ability to have this technology focuses on wellness more than just the food that we enter into our body. It's the overall wellness, the mental state that we feel, and the independence. I'm going to wrap this up with the last questions. I'm looking to see, Giles, if you could maybe help our designers in how do they get involved in the process of getting or finding an integrator in this industry, and where do they start in the process?
So, as Julie mentioned, technology companies in my industry have been integrating technology for years and years and years, and actually, and also working with designers and architects for a long time. But I think the most important thing is that a designer can do is identify a technology company in their area that has experience of working with designers and design professionals, and go to them and actually, if they have a new project or have an idea, and actually try to develop a design around that. I think partnerships are the most critical thing. I ran a technology company for 14 years, as I said, and by the time I came to leave my company, I had such deep relationships with the architects and designers that I was working with. It's like we almost, finished each other's sentences when we were looking at plans of houses. We knew exactly what the other one was thinking and how we were going to apply technology to all these different spaces. And those are the relationships that I think are so important that designers need to develop. That technology companies are not the enemy. We're often seen as like the AV guy. We're originally seen as the AV guys. We just want to stick ugly black screens on the wall and stuff. But
Big honking boxes.
Yeah, and big home theater systems and things like that. But that's not really the way it is anymore. So, as I say, I would encourage designers to reach out to technology companies in their area. We have a member finder service on our website, and start to develop those relationships. It takes time, as we know, and it's based on trust as well and experience. But
and if you don't like your first partner, try again, because there's good ones out there.
Awesome. At this time, I'd like to open it up to the audience to see if you have any questions for the experts on panel regarding technology and wellness. Yes. So the question is, how much information are we giving Alexa, and how safe and secure is that? Do you want to take that, Giles?
I mean, so Amazon do keep their cards a little bit close to their chest on this, and I don't think it would go to the extent of what you just mentioned about sort of going into sort of banking details and things like that. I may have misheard you, but I think you did mention that. But for sure, we're seeing voice products as being their gateway into the home, so they can certainly read the devices that are connected to your smart home. I should make it clear that there are secure voice products out there. What Josh AI is one that I'm aware of. They don't. Josh AI is one of them. They have a different way of dealing with your personal data. But yes, is in short answer. It is the gateway to the smart devices in your home. So it's up to the comfort level of your client as to whether they are happy with having that in their home. I'm seeing adoption in sort of high-end residential is not quite so much as yeah.
One way to mitigate some of those privacy concerns is some devices require you to press a button, like on a remote control, and it won't listen to you until you press that button. So, if cybersecurity is a primary concern of yours, don't use Amazon or Google. Just don't.
I know that the concern has also been with technology and wellness, specifically in the bathroom. They're measuring waste and being able to dictate what your diet should look like and your physical activity should look like. And if that's not something that you're interested in, turn it off or don't buy it. Is there any other questions out here? We have a couple more minutes. The question is, how easy is technology to retrofit into your home? So I'm going to lean on either of you.
Julie, you can answer that one.
It's always best if you're building new to do the proper wiring and all the planning first. If you don't have it in there, there's a wireless solution for everything. And there's ways to retrofit wiring as well. And, and you think about existing spaces where you don't have the luxury of creating green spaces. The whole biophilic design where, you can walk outdoors for a little bit, get your fresh air. There's virtual skylights that can simulate, nature. There's all sorts of ways to work with existing buildings to bring that nature in, whether it's wireless technology or simply fixes to make a space seem like it's outdoors.
I've heard so many people too say about future-proofing, and it's really nice that the manufacturers are thinking about this ahead of time and thinking that an update is as simple as updating with an app or reinstalling the app. So future-proofing is very much on the forefront of manufacturers' thoughts in early production stages.
What's interesting is because of these technologies, the virtual skylights and daylighting techniques, you can subdivide properties so that you can have spaces that don't have windows and still have a positive experience in those spaces. So, office buildings that, we need to cram more people in and create new spaces in, you can do that with some of these the biomimicry designs.
Wonderful. So I thank you all. If you have any other questions for the panelists afterwards, feel free to give your cards, exchange information, and we'll be here all week, right? One more day. One more day and the show is over. Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoy your show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.